What is your go-to creepy / unexplained story? I had just moved into a new house. One day I was downstairs when I heard what sounded like furniture moving around upstairs. I go up to investigate but no sounds. Nothing has moved. Go back downstairs and it starts again. I go back up. Nothing. This went on for about an hour. I almost called the police because I was positive someone was in my home. I ended up calling someone and kept them on speakerphone while I searched the attic and any other place maybe an animal could be hiding, but I never found anything. Eventually I gave up my search and went to bed. That night I had a dream that I was driving to work in the rain and fog and crashed. Someone approached me and asked, "Are you ready to move on?" And I woke up. At the time I was working mid-shift, so around 10 PM that same day I get in the car on a foggy and rainy night and make my way into work without any issue. The building I worked in had security cameras all over, and it being so late I was the only person coming in. When I get inside, the person I was relieving asked who I came in with. I was alone, but she swore someone followed me inside. It was a very unnerving 12 hours to say the least. I've posted this before. Not sure if it's supernatural, but it's definitely creepy. I was hiking through the remnants of a remote, long abandoned town in the surrounding area. To get to as far into the woods as I was, you had to cross fallen trees over a creek 3 times. I had just crossed the 3rd bridge and was about 5 miles in and something blue caught my eye just ahead of me. There was a man, in his 60s at least, wearing blue satin pajamas, sitting in a tree. The closer I got to him the louder he laughed. It wasn't a maniacal laugh, but it set off all the alarms in my head nevertheless. He also wasn't wearing any shoes and looked well groomed / cleaned. I gave him a friendly nod as I passed and he just kept laughing. Then it stopped. I turned and he was gone. There was no branch cracking, plants rustling, nothing. He was just gone. Still rubs me the wrong way. The area I was in was a pretty rough hike, very secluded. Not very many people venture as deep as I was that day. No idea what was going on there. This happened about 2 months ago. I was alone in the house as my parents were away working for the weekend. They were due back that evening when my mum texted me to say that they'd broken down and were awaiting the breakdown service to pick them up. I asked them if there was anything I could do, but they told me to go to sleep as they'd probably be back late. Fast forward to 3 AM. I woke up to use the toilet. When I left the bathroom, I glanced over to their bedroom and the door was shut and I could see the light on inside. At this point I should note that when I went to sleep, their bedroom door was open and the light was off, so I thought, oh, they must be home. I stumbled towards the door and remember stopping myself, thinking, no, I won't go in, I'll just speak to them in the morning. So I turned back towards my room and go back to sleep. Next thing I know, I'm being woken by the sound of the front door opening downstairs. I glanced at the clock, noting it was 3:45 am, 45 minutes after I'd last woken up. I thought it was a bit strange and got a tense feeling in my stomach. I walked out of my bedroom, glanced over to my parents' room, only to see the door open and the light off. The bed was also made so no one had been in it. I felt sick. So I went downstairs and nervously asked my mum, "Have you just got home?" She was like, "Yeah, why?" I just sat staring into space wondering what the fuck happened. I'm still wondering now. Didn't experience this firsthand, but I overheard some of it on the phone. My sister was visiting my parents, home from college, for the weekend. I live in my own place the next town over. I called her about something, and she was clearly very upset. She told me she was home alone and something was happening and I asked her if there was someone in the house / an intruder. She told me there were animalistic growling noises coming from the corner and my mom's dog was going nuts on the noise. I could hear him in the background. She said the hallway lights were flashing on and off. I told her to get her jacket and calmly walk out of the house, taking the dog with her if she could, that I would be by soon to pick her up. She went outside and brought the dog with her. Her friend was even closer than I was, so she picked my sister up, and they hung out at her friend's house for a while. About 20 minutes after that my brother, who also lived nearby, stopped by the house to return some tools he'd borrowed for my dad. He went inside because he saw the lights going on and off, and he's an electrician. Once he was inside they stopped. He kept hearing someone walking around in the other room, But when he'd go in there, no one was there, and when he called out no one responded. He checked the whole house and then also heard animal growling noises from the same corner as my sister. This is an outside wall corner with windows, not enough space for a raccoon or something to be trapped inside the wall. My brother felt really unnerved and left. I own this really random photography book called 100 Young Americans that I bought around 2007ish, maybe earlier. I know I still own it because I recently reorganized my bookshelf. Just last week I was getting into my car and I saw something sitting on top of the trunk of my car. I get out. It's a copy of 100 Young Americans just sitting on my hood. Why is that random photography book that I've literally never seen anyone else have sitting open on the hood of my car? Also, yes, my copy is safe and sound in my bookcase. This might become mine after what happened last night. I was playing poker at the local casino and got into a hand with this guy who was wearing some sort of space themed hoodie. The second the first 3 cards hit the board, I had the strongest déjà vu I have ever experienced. I had a dream about that exact moment like a year ago, and I knew the exact next 2 cards that were going to come out. They came out just as I had expected to the point of me calling them, and I won a huge hand. My family moved into a new house when I was 11 years old. The previous owners were a family and the mom died of cancer. They sold the house shortly after she passed away. Growing up, my sister and I always had an uneasy feeling about that house. Strange things would happen, but each instance had a plausible explanation, except for this one time when I was 16. In the middle of the night I was having trouble sleeping. While I was lying there in my bed, the door to my room opened on its own. I could hear footsteps come into my room. I couldn't see anyone but I felt like someone else was in my room. Ever have someone come up behind you while you're on the computer or listening to music and just know they were there without hearing or seeing them? Like that. I could hear the footsteps get closer to my bed. Then, right next to me appeared compression on my bed, like an invisible person was sitting there. I could even feel the weight shift. I reached out to touch the compression and all of a sudden a bunch of blue static electricity shot out from the spot I touched. I screamed and ran out of my room, waking up the entire house. I couldn't explain what I saw that night. Was almost questioning my own sanity, and that's why I don't tell this story often. For the record, I was 100% sober at the time. Also, because I could move, I don't think it was sleep paralysis. The strange thing is that years later my sister ran into the daughter of the previous family. She told my sister that her mom had actually died in the house, not at the hospital. Okay, almost a year ago a very close family friend, pretty much my uncle, passed away. It really took everyone by surprise. He constantly rode his bike, ate very healthy meals, and made sure to squeeze in some exercise before work. Ironically, he died from a stroke during one of his workouts. A few days after the funeral, I went up to my parents and told them about 2 weeks or so, I had a dream about my teeth falling out. In my culture that means someone is going to die. My mom went on to tell me about a family pic she had taken on her phone that same month. She deleted it as soon as she saw it because of how much it freaked her out. There was a completely different face on top of hers. As she was telling me, she got very pale. And finally, one of the weirdest, maybe most chilling part out of all this, my dad's dream. My dad and my uncle were very close. They were friends for many years. Heck, the house I grew up in was built by them, for them. My room was supposed to be my uncle's room. A few days before it happened, my dad had a dream he was walking towards this black vehicle parked outside the house with my mom. He said he was like some sort of zombie, mindlessly walking behind my mom until he saw the driver. It was just some woman, couldn't really see her face, but could tell by the shape. She was waiting for them. That's when my dad snapped out of it and grabbed my mom and ran back into the house. But before he left, he realized my uncle was sitting inside the vehicle. He woke up in a panic. He then continued to have dreams with that same woman, lingering outside the house until my uncle passed.